Hi, you're on the Short Recaps channel, and this is the movie Heretic. Two young missionaries visit an elderly man in an attempt to convert him to their faith. The host turns out to be an expert in world religions and subjects the girls to a series of tests of faith. The film begins with a conversation between two missionaries, Sister Barnes and Sister Paxton. The girls discuss the Book of Mormon and a pornographic video. Paxton claims she saw repentance on the actress's face when they were caught during filming, which led her to conclude that such a higher concept as the soul must exist. The girls then walk through the streets with their bicycles, offering passersby a chance to learn more about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Most people ignore them, while some teenagers mock the missionaries under the pretense of taking a selfie. They pull down Paxton's skirt to glimpse her magic underwear. Upset, the girls arrive at the mansion where Mr. Ritt lives. He had previously shown interest in the church. Locking their bicycles to the fence, the girls knock on the door as rain begins to fall, mentally preparing themselves for relentless proselytizing. The homeowner opens the door and invites them inside. Since missionaries are not allowed to be alone with a man, the girls ask if there is a woman in the house. Ritt replies that his wife is baking a blueberry pie, and only then do the guests enter. While Ritt goes to get refreshments, the girls examine the interior, noticing a sign on the wall that reads, "Blessed be the mess." Ritt returns with soda, coffee, and a scented candle. He asks how the girls came to religion. Barnes admits that after her father died, her mother turned to religion, choosing among several churches before settling on Mormonism. Ritt says he himself studied religions for a long time, trying to determine which one was truly correct. He is familiar with the Book of Mormon and its author, Joseph Smith, and even owns a copy. Ritt asks whether Barnes's father ever tried to contact her from beyond the grave. To ease the awkwardness, Paxton says that after death she would like to become a butterfly and fly to those she loves. Mr. Ritt asks how the girls feel about polygamy, one of the original features of Mormonism that was later abolished. According to various accounts, Joseph Smith had around 27 wives. Barnes skillfully navigates the question, explaining that it helped increase the number of community members under harsh survival conditions. When circumstances changed, the ethically questionable practice was simply abolished. Ritt shifts the conversation to fast food, comparing theology to cheap meals. After years of studying different religions, he has grown so oversaturated with them that they now repel him. Uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation, Paxton asks Ritt to bring his wife into the room to comply with Mormon propriety. When he leaves, Barnes notices that the scented candle on the table smells exactly like blueberry pie. Upon returning, Ritt asks them to follow him to his wife. Barnes claims they received a call from their superiors and need to leave. Ritt leaves them alone to talk. The girls decide they should get away from the overly talkative host. However, the key to the bike lock is still in the coat Ritt took earlier. They decide to abandon the bicycles and leave on foot, but the front door is locked. When the lights go out due to the storm, the girls venture deeper into the house, into the library, where Ritt is waiting. He claims he is not trying to detain them, and says he is busy fixing the leak in the attic. Not just the attic, but the house itself. The girls' coats hang over the back of a chair. Taking their coats, the missionaries search for the key. Somehow, it has mysteriously moved from Barnes's pocket to Paxton's. The girls ask the host to open the front door. He explains that the lock is on a timer and won't open until morning. They will have to leave through the back doors, two of them, located in the library. Before they choose, Ritt admits that he saw through their lie. No one called them. The house is lined with metal that blocks cell signals. When asked again to call his wife, Ritt asks whether the girls even believe she exists. Despite the abundance of indirect evidence suggesting he is lying, he explains that this is precisely his point. Not everything said convincingly is true. The host asks the girls to decide which door they will leave through. Barnes opens one door, looks inside, then closes it and approaches the other. Behind it is a staircase leading down to the basement. Paxton checks the first door. Behind it there are stairs leading downward as well. The girls warn that an elder will come looking for them. At the same time, the elder is indeed checking the missionary lists and notices that two of them have not yet returned. Ritt explains that there is a cliff behind the house. A passage runs beneath it, and they must go down to reach it. However, to find out which door leads there, they must make a choice. To illustrate his point, the host puts on a performance for his guests. He plays a vinyl record and takes out several boxes of the board game Monopoly in different editions. Placing them on the table next to symbols and sacred books of three religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, Ritt explains that board games and religions are merely different iterations of the same source material. Just like the song playing in the background, the original version, which few people have ever heard, was eclipsed in popularity by a cover performed by Radiohead. Mr. Ritt asks why later versions became more popular. Christianity surpassed Judaism, and Monopoly, originally plagiarized from a landowner's game, became a global brand. He adds that in world religions there are more than 10 deities born on December 25th, the date of Christ's birth. The myth of the Messiah's resurrection after death appeared 1,000 years before our era, and echoes of this myth can still be heard in modern culture, including even such mainstream pop phenomena as Star Wars. Ritt answers his own question. It all comes down to marketing. To preachers like Sisters Barnes and Paxton, wandering from house to house, spreading their religion into people's minds. Ending his performance by dramatically knocking over the visual aids, Ritt writes faith and disbelief on the doors and invites the girls to choose which one to exit through. While he changes the record on the gramophone, Barnes picks up a letter opener lying among the documents and slips it into her pocket. Paxton decides to play along and chooses disbelief, claiming that his words have convinced her. Barnes, however, refuses. She argues with the host, reminding him that religions, despite certain similarities, also have many differences, and that comparing them to board games is insulting. She offers several additional unconvincing, emotionally driven examples rather than factual ones, including the physical differences between Egyptian gods and the Christian deity. Then the girls descend together through the door marked Faith. Mr. Ritt closes the door behind them, forcing them to use their phone as a light source. At the bottom of the stairs there is another door leading into a basement with a high damaged ceiling, a table and a chair, as well as a second door coming from the disbelief passage. Realizing they are trapped, Paxton nearly panics, while Barnes chooses to act. She drags the table and chair together to reach a window, but the height is insufficient. The most she manages to do is tear off a wooden plank with nails. Hearing footsteps, she returns the furniture to its place. Before anyone enters, Barnes hands Paxton the hidden knife, agreeing that she will stab Ritt when she hears the code word. Since Flockanasani hilipilification is already taken, they settle on magic underwear. A hooded figure enters the basement carrying a flashlight and a plate with blueberry pie. The visitor places the pie on the table and then crouches silently in a corner. The missionaries hear music coming through the communication system. Mr. Ritt turns on the gramophone upstairs, arranging figurines of the participants inside a miniature replica of the mansion while simultaneously carving a new figure out of wood. While he is occupied, Barnes slips upstairs through the door left open by the visitor, toward the disbelief passage. Through the cracks, she sees boxes of matches scattered on the carpet, but does not manage to do anything. The host makes contact again. Returning to the basement, Barnes speaks with Ritt. He claims that the hooded figure is a true prophet of God. Ritt asserts that after years of searching, he has found the one true religion, of which all others are merely distant echoes. As proof, he intends to show the girls, who are to serve as witnesses, a real miracle, resurrection. The girls watch as the prophet sits at the table and eats the poisoned pie, collapsing face down moments later. The host asks the captives to check for pulse and breathing to confirm that the woman is dead, despite involuntary muscle spasms. After checking her breathing, Barnes confirms that the prophet is dead. While they wait, Ritt says that once resurrected, the woman will reveal what happens after death. Their waiting is interrupted by an unexpected knock at the door. A Mormon elder, searching for his subordinates, has followed their trail. The missionaries rush upstairs, preparing to scream, but there is no point. Reed closes the doors before unlocking the disguised front door lock. The host lies, claiming he hasn't seen anyone, while the captives try to pull the matches scattered on the carpet through a crack, hoping to light a fire and signal for help with smoke. As the Mormon elder walks past the fence where the parked bicycles have vanished, the prisoners manage to reach the matches and awkwardly grab a few. After going back downstairs, Paxton notices that the prophet's body is lying in a different position, but Barnes tells her not to get distracted. They strike the matches against the stone wall, trying to set a piece of cloth on fire. Suddenly, they are interrupted by the prophet regaining consciousness. Vomiting a thick liquid onto the burning match, the woman says she saw a blinding light and clouds, adding at the end that it felt unreal. Reed comes down next to escort the resurrected woman away, then questions the captives about what she told them. He insists that the afterlife exists, that he has undeniable proof, and that the girls can witness it personally. Barnes does not believe him. She thinks the man simply wants to persuade them to accept death voluntarily. She recounts that she experienced clinical death as a child and saw something similar to what the prophet described. She explains that this is a typical account of near-death hallucinations, commonly reported by many who have been close to death. While keeping Reed talking, Barnes argues that there was no miracle here, just a simple trick, just like the magic underwear. After those words, a blade cuts deeper than any argument. But it is not Paxton who slashes Reed's throat. Reed himself cuts the defiant Barnes. Watching her friend bleed out, Paxton panics and tries to flee, but the upstairs door is locked. When she returns, Reed assures her that her friend will soon be resurrected. When this does not happen, he cuts into Barnes's arm where a scar is visible and removes a foreign object from the wound. Reed claims that this is the reason. Barnes was never real. She was a program, and therefore could not be resurrected. He explains that the world follows the Taoist concept of the butterfly dream. They are living in a simulation and awaken into the real world after death. Since Barnes, as a program, never truly lived, she does not exist in reality, and thus did not resurrect. Paxton does not believe him. She criticizes the hypothesis, pointing out that the implant is simply a hormonal contraceptive. She believes there was no resurrection at all. Reed staged a trick with a corpse, swapping the dead woman with a living double while the captives were retrieving the matches. However, when the prophet added an improvised line about unreality to her prepared speech, it forced the host to improvise as well, inventing the simulation theory on the spot. Reed objects, saying that if Paxton is right, there must be another exit from the basement, and suggests they find it. The attentive Paxton notices a drain under the table where water from the leaking ceiling flows. She uncovers a concealed hatch leading into a tunnel below. Reed invites her to go down and see for herself whether she's right. He also says that the one true religion awaits her there. Paxton descends and finds a corpse lying in a puddle. Reed closes the hatch behind her, forcing her to move forward. She passes through several rooms separated by doors marked with symbols of different religions until she reaches a door locked with a bicycle chain. She pulls the key from her coat pocket, realizing that everything was planned by Reed in advance. Even the fact that she, not Barnes, would end up there. Behind the door is a room with cramped cages holding other captives, women forced to play the role of prophets. Reed himself descends through another passage to feed them. Paxton admits that she has figured out his elaborate plan to lure missionaries into a trap and erase all traces. All of it was done so that a man disillusioned with every religion could convey one simple idea to young minds. The only true religion is control. Reed confirms her conclusion. All religions were created by some people to control others. He tells her that she has been controlled her entire life, what she does, what she eats, and even what underwear she wears. At that moment, the Mormon girl remembers the knife and plunges it straight into the host's neck. Leaving Reed bleeding out, she runs toward the exit. However, her wandering through the maze-like corridors leads her back to the basement, where the lifeless body of her fellow missionary lies. There, the wounded Reed ambushes her and stabs her in the stomach. Mocking her, Reed tells Paxton to pray. She responds by telling him about an experiment. A group of patients was divided into two groups. One group was prayed for, the other was not. The prayers predictably had no effect. Nevertheless, she believes that prayer is an expression of care for someone else. She begins to pray for both of them as the injured Reed crawls toward her to deliver the final blow. As he raises the knife, he is struck in the face with a plank studded with nails. Barnes, previously wounded, has regained consciousness and taken revenge. She dies in the arms of the friend she saved. Leaving the dead behind in the basement, Paxton climbs upstairs. Studying the house model, she finds the way out. She walks through pristine, untouched snow, straight into the dawn of her new life. Bent over in pain, she notices a butterfly that should not have appeared at this time of year. It lands on her hand, just as Paxton once dreamed she would do after death. Suddenly, the butterfly vanishes, like a dying brain's final hallucination. On this intriguing note, the film comes to an end.